Hello, family, and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Come on in and welcome to the conversation. Kings and queens, if this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you. And if you are a returning viewer, we want to welcome you back. I am TriCasting on Facebook Live, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and some other platforms. I'm adding platforms every day. So I want to be able to expand my viewership. So if you are listening and looking live, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you will be the first to know. We have guests today on the show, but before we get to those guests, let's talk about why we have guests on. And I don't know about you when you were growing up, but I had rules in my family that one of the rules was when I left the house, I had to tell my mother where I was going. And when I told her where I was going, I had to go where I said I was going. Now that's so in case anything happened, if she had to find me, if she needed to know where I was, she needed to check up on me as a child. That's what parents do. She knew where to start looking. If anything happened that wasn't supposed to happen, she knew where to start looking for me, who I was with last. And so even as an adult today, I still follow some of those habits. If I'm going out of my normal circle of where I do my activities, I always tell someone where I'm going, because it's even more important these days. And here's why: because Black people are dying under questionable circumstances. Every other week you hear about a new death of somebody. And some of these instances are being called suicides when really they're not suicides. They're homicides. They're modern day lynchings. And so it's ever more important that even if you are an adult, you always keep your head on a swivel. You always be aware of your surroundings, and you let people know where you're going and who you left with when you left, in case it has to come down to them verifying and looking for you. And that is where the family of Derontae Martin finds themselves. Now, if you're not familiar with the story, Derontae Martin was 19 years old. He lived in the St. Louis, Missouri area with his family. And about 4 months ago in April, he left with some friends, and those friends came back home safely. But Derontae Martin did not come back home safely. He was found dead, and the reports are, according to law enforcement in the area and according to the coroner in the county where he was found dead, they called it a suicide, but his family didn't agree, and they are fighting back. And since that time, just a week and a half ago, his death was ruled not a suicide, but it was ruled under violent circumstances. In other words, he was murdered. His family is here to talk about that. So we want to welcome his family. We have Miss Kimberly Lotz with us. She is his grandmother, and his mom is Miss Erica Lotz. We want to welcome them to the show. Welcome, ladies, to our show.
Thank you.
Now, Miss Erica, are we able to hear you? We're not able. Okay, yes, great. We can hear you both. Now I want to again, I'm hearing some feedback. So until it's time for you to talk, I'm going to turn down your audio, and then we won't have the feedback. But Miss Lotz, you're his grandmother, Miss Kimberly, and so we just want to get some feedback from you. Some like, what was it? How did you find out? Now, of course, in the in reports said that Derontae left in a car with 3 friends. Derontae's Black 19-year-old, he left with 3 of his white friends. We all have friends of different races and genders. And so he was supposed to be going to a party, and essentially he never came back home, but the people in the car with him came back. So Miss Kimberly, his grandmother, talk to us about how you found out about your grandson being his death.
Well, correction stand in order. When Derontae left St. Louis with these 3 friends, Derontae was supposed to be coming to Park Hills, Missouri, to my house, not going to a party. We knew nothing of a party. So, how I found out about Derontae's death was there was a phone call made to the church that Derontae attended. And then I was called from the church. No, I was called. Somebody called me, and then I called Parkland Hospital, who did not have a gunshot victim, because they only told me that Derontae had been shot. And so when I called Parkland Hospital, which is the hospital in our area, they had no gunshot victim brought in through the night. So I did the only thing that I knew to do, and that was to call 911. So when I called 911, the dispatcher looked through the records and put me on a brief hold, and then she came back and she told me that Derontae had been shot, but it was not in St. Francis County, that it happened in Madison County. And she then dispatched me through to Madison County 911. I can't hear you.
So at this point, how many hours had it been since you had heard from Derontae? You said that a family member called and told you that they heard he had been shot, and you called looking for him. How many hours had it been since you had heard from your grandson?
Well, he never showed up. I think that was on Friday morning. I believe that it was that he left home on the 23rd. I believe that his mom is on, so his mom can better answer the time that he left home than I can. But he never made it to my house. So essentially, the 23rd was the last time that we heard from Derontae.
Hey, Miss Erica, you're his mom. Talk to us about what was it like. Because I'm asking this because according to the coroner, a lot of people already knew that Derontae had been shot, but his family, had not been notified of any shooting or anything at this point. What was the last time? When was the last time? How many hours had it been since you had talked to your son?
Well, I had last talked to Derontae on the 23rd at 11:55 went to my phone, and he apologized for breaking the picture that I had, and that's when he had gotten the car and he left, which was on the 23rd. And on the 24th, I was talking to mom, and I asked her had he made it there, and she was like, no, he hadn't made it on the 24th, and see if he answered the phone, and which he did, and he did not. On the 25th, when we were talking about how I had talked to him within that time, she in turn got a phone call, and that phone call let her know that Derontae was shot. Well, that's when she in turn called the 911 dispatcher, and I was calling the hospitals. And she located him at the morgue actually before I did, and he was, and that was about maybe 2 o'clock on April the 5th.
So I'm going to take your audio down a little bit because I'm still getting trouble with your audio. But okay, so just to reiterate what you said, that you heard from him the night before, and he was supposed to be going to his grandmother's house, and he never showed up. And so at 19, you know, people go out, they do different things. So you might not have worried about him. But was it Miss Kimberly? Was it his practice to just go out and not call or not come by or not follow up and do what he was supposed to do? What was his habit normally when he was hanging out with his friends?
No, it was not. Actually, if he did not call, he would text. If I text him, he would text me back. So he would text like most kids do. They will text you back. They will not answer, but they will text you back. So Derontae did not text me back. So it was Sunday morning when Sunday afternoon, and his mother and I, we was on the phone because we were both discussing that we had not heard from Derontae, and Derontae never made it to my house, which aroused our suspicion as to like what's going on. Well, wait a minute, this not like him. It's not like him not to do what he said. If he said that he's gonna come to my house, he gonna come to my house. It's not like him not to text us back. And so when he never texts me back, and so at the time when we were talking about him not responding, my other phone line rang, and that's when I was alerted that Derontae had been hurt. Well, at that point, when I talked to the Colin Follis, which is the coroner, he told me that he had got a call out at 4:10 a.m. and Derontae had committed suicide. So at that time, I told him the devil is a lie. My baby, my grandson did not commit suicide. That's a lie. So it is now, we're looking at 12:30 p.m. April 25th. So we're looking at 8 hours. We never received a death notification. Nobody ever knocked on the door, said Derontae is dead. So after talking to him, and then he told me that he gave me the spin that since Derontae had never been arrested and never been in trouble, that he couldn't get a hit on his fingerprints, which was a lie, because Derontae had an identity kit done when he was younger, so his fingerprints would have been in the system. So he told me, I said, well, why didn't anybody let us know? Why didn't anybody contact me? So he told me that I beat him to the punch because he identified Derontae through facial recognition. He took a picture of him and ran his picture through the Department of Revenue because he had just gotten his driver's license. So when
that doesn't sound right, that it would, he's got time. Well, when you and I discussed earlier, this is a small town. Facial recognition is not something that that would be a slower process than the child identity kit that you said that all kids in Missouri and most states have this thing now to help them identify if children get kidnapped or go missing. That would be an easier route to take for them to help identify Derontae at this point. So it wasn't adding up to you. I mean, it sounds like to me, and I don't even have kids, but I understand there's some things that would be at your disposal and other things that doesn't sound like would be at your disposal, but you claim that's the route you wanted to take.
Exactly, which did not make sense because as he continued to talk, and he found it very important for him to, I thought that he found it very important for him to tell me that Derontae had just gotten his driver's license. That's usually not what somebody would say that has identified somebody through a photo ID. It doesn't really matter when the ID was issued. That was how you identified them. So at that point, I told him again that he was lying. He was looking at Derontae's driver's license because that's what I felt. He was looking at him. That's how you knew he had just gotten them. He had just recently gotten his driver's license. That's just not something normal that people just would say. Well, I ran him through the Department of Revenue. You know, you went through the Department of Revenue. You didn't even go through the a higher revenue where you could actually do facial recognition.
And you know what? Since we spoke yesterday, because we initially spoke, and that's when you agreed to come on the show, I looked up Madison County coroner Colin Ferris. Now, apparently he was running for office, and in fall of 2020 is when he got reelected as Madison County coroner. And during that time when he was trying to get elected, he said this. He said, "I'm very knowledgeable of the laws the coroner's office must follow, such as child fatality investigations, coroner's inquest to natural death, accidental homicide, and suicide investigations set forth by Missouri state statutes." And he went on to say that some of the most important qualities of an effective coroner are to understand and follow all the laws and ability to interact and cooperate with other agencies involved with death investigations. And while maintaining a respectful and caring relationship with the families involved while determining the manner and the cause of death. This is what he said when he was running for office. Yet I find it ironic that your interaction with him, your experience with him was totally opposite. It was as if he didn't understand what the process was, but he had already been coroner. He just said he understood, but your family didn't get, one, the respect of a death notification that other people already were it was already in the streets as to what had happened. So why he hadn't gotten around to calling you, his grandmother or his mother before. I mean, that's the whole point of understanding the being sensitive to a family. You don't want a family to find out about the death of their loved one through the grapevine, for God's sake. You want them to get to get that information from an authority. And so that wasn't what you got. And you felt like he was trying to, when we spoke yesterday, you said you felt as if they were trying to make Derontae Martin a missing person. Why did you think that?
Yes, ma'am, because we were 8 hours into, we were probably, according to what they posted on the Madison County website, that the shooting happened at 3 o'clock or 3:01 or somewhere in there. Let's just say 3 o'clock. So now that we're at 12:30 p.m., the following day, the 25th, April the 25th, and they had not contacted us, that I believe, it is my belief that Derontae was supposed to be a missing person.
They had already
So now, so we've been hearing from, and I'm getting feedback again. I'm trying to include. Let me see.
My daughter is really upset.
Yeah, and we can, I'm trying to include her. I want her to talk, but I'm getting a lot of feedback that's coming from her line, so it's hard for me to. Let's try this. Miss Erica, if you can hear me, what is it like? What do you have the same feeling that your mom, Derontae's grandmother, had about what was the intention for trying to keep you guys from knowing about, like, what was their reason for stalling on calling the family? What do you think was really going on?
it happened on 25th, and I mean, it's just common sense. It's on the 25th at 4 in the morning is when the coroner's supposed to pick them up on the 25th. Now, by the 25th, you already have him on the autopsy table, and he's in my 26th, but still to this day. Today is 3 months later. This is the 15th, and they still haven't called me and told me about my son shot or anything. Here it is, you've done all this, and within 2 days, and you hadn't even notified the family. So you had already prepped him for cremation because legally you can't him.
So didn't understand what she was saying. She's saying that essentially she feels like they were trying to withhold telling the family so that they could dispose of Derontae's remains and call it a that they couldn't. They were kind of trying to say, well, we couldn't find the family, we couldn't verify who he was, and by the time the family found out, it would have been too late for them to come and request any to identify his remains. Because Miss Kimberly, when you and Erica, you said she, because, and I'm gonna let you kind of talk for her since we can't really, because of the feedback for her, you mentioned that when the family requested, let me come and identify Derontae, what was the response from the coroner?
Well, when I asked him if I could come and identify Derontae because I wanted to make sure that it was Derontae, he told me, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, but it's Sunday. Today we're closed. But you went and picked him up at 4 o'clock this morning. So you wasn't closed at 4 o'clock this morning. So now that you're closed, so then my daughter called on Monday, and my daughter requested to come and identify him, and he told her that she could not come and identify him because of COVID.
Okay, so then at what point was she able to go and identify him? And I know you guys were working with another funeral home. So was the funeral, it turned out, I think you said yesterday, that essentially the funeral home, they tried to put the funeral home off on coming to get him. So the funeral home had to say, look, we're coming to get his body tomorrow or whenever they had decided. And so at that point, it was kind of, so you never really got to go down to Madison County as per procedure. When somebody is found deceased, the family gets to go and follow the process. So the man, Colin Follis, I think that's his name, the Madison County coroner, the person who claimed that he knows all about procedures, was not following procedures when it came to your son and your family member. and try to deter you the whole way using all kind of excuses as to why you couldn't come down there. Sounds like to me they were trying to make it like let what's the word? Let the deterioration of his remains start to occur to the point where, and in addition to him being said that he had shot himself. So now there's all this where you don't want to see him like this. Now the remains are starting to decompose. It's like all of this that you're dealing with. And I want to add that his mom, Miss Erica, and I certainly don't mean to put you through all of this right now, because again, we thank you for being available. You were pregnant and just gave birth a few months ago. So you're having to deal with the death of one child and carrying another child, all, and the people, the law enforcement that you think is going to help you to figure it out is really making it worse.
Yeah.
So Miss Miss Kimberly, at what point, so now let's move on from that night to the people who he left with. I'm going to take Miss Erica out, and it's just going to be me and you for now. So the friends that he was in the car with, I know two of them were adults because Derontae was 19, so they were at least 19, 20, around his age, and then there was a minor in the car. You know, that's kind of like civil. That, I mean, first of all, I would be thinking as a parent or as a relative, like, how is it that my baby left with y'all and y'all made it home safe, but he didn't make it home safe? Because if y'all supposed to be his friends, you supposed to have his back and he's supposed to have your back, whatever happens. So what was the explanation with these people he was in a car with, these two white dudes, three white dudes, that what happened? How did y'all get separated? What did they tell you, Miss Lotz, about that?
Well, what Eddie told us was that he didn't know how Derontae left his house and got to the party with Caden. He said that he was at home asleep. He went to Fredericktown, Madison County at 2:30 in the morning and picked up Caden. And he asked Caden, where was Derontae? Caden in turn told Eddie that Derontae was gone and he had left with someone named Brand. And they left Derontae. So I said to Eddie, well, if this is your friend, then why would you leave him down here in a strange place? That doesn't make sense to me. If you all left together, why would you go pick up one and not pick up the other? So he says, well, I didn't know where Derontae was. I mean, Caden said that he left and he had been gone for a long time, which none of that made sense. But Erica can speak more on a conversation with Eddie, because I haven't talked to either one of those guys since that day, which was April the 25th, April 26th, I think, when we talked to Eddie.
All right, so Miss Erica, what was the conversation with the guys who your son Derontae left with on that day?
Well, when it came to the 25th, I asked Eddie, tell me what happened, where was Derontae? He says that, you know, after he picked up Caden, they didn't know where Derontae left. He had the house with Zach, and if he was gone with Zach, well, why'd you leave? He said, well, we waited and we didn't see him. And I said, so you never called back? Like, no, because he didn't have his phone. And then that's when the intern passed me his phone in the car and gave me his clothes that he had taken with him for overnight. The phone had been deleted with the text messages and the call logs and contact list. And I asked him, why did you get the phone? He said, well, he left the phone out, he didn't have his phone. And I asked him that he didn't know where anything else was. And that was all that he had left at the house. And I said, well, okay. And that's when I got in the house and looked at the phone. I later found out that everything was deleted. But when I his mother and also his sister, they said that Eddie deleted Derontae's phone due to the fact that he was trying to hide drug activities phone. But when he gave me one, he told me that Derontae had been using meth and meth. But tell me this, but at the same time deleted the phone to hide drug activity. Why would you tell me about drug activity but then delete the evidence activity?
Okay, so
he in turn.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't finished. So let me in case some people are having trouble hearing you. So what you're saying is she said she spoke with the people who he left with, or at least the driver, one of the guys, and he said that he had Derontae's phone, that he left it in the car. He had some clothes that Derontae might have discarded in the car. And so, but when she followed up, his mom followed up with this guy's mother and sister, it was like a whole different story. And so Miss Lotz, his grandmother, let me ask you, because it just seems to me that it's suspect that they would leave him, or that they would split up. And when I spoke to you yesterday, you mentioned the fact that you don't think Derontae was naive enough, if that's the right word, to go into a house. Once they got to Madison County, Fredericktown, Missouri, that's about an hour outside of St. Louis, that you, in this house supposedly where he died, there was a known guy named James Wade. Was it James Wade? Let me try to pull up his picture in a minute. But the person who called 911, and if you want to hear the 911 call, viewers, you can go on YouTube and just do a search for Derontae Martin 911 call, and there are different videos that one highlight the video, and it also has some where people are talking about they could hear what's going on in the background, and how when the guy was on the phone telling 911 about a suicide, there are people in the background saying, y'all shot him. So it's evident that there's more to the story than a suicide. Why police that came on the scene did not follow up is a whole nother issue. But Miss Kimberly, let's talk about what you, as far as the investigation, because we went through the part about the coroner not doing his part. Now talk to us about when officially a couple of days later, the Madison County coroner came out with a statement that officially said it was a suicide. And then that's when the family decided to hire your own coroner, forensic pathologist to do your own autopsy. Talk to us about why you did that, or we know why you did it, but so a lot of families don't know you can do that. A lot of families would just think they have to go with what the coroner said in that county. How did you know that you could challenge what the coroner said, and it eventually is making a difference for you so far?
because none of it made sense. It doesn't. People don't go to a party and commit suicide. People don't go to unknown people's houses, go into unknown rooms in those houses and commit suicide. Derontae's dominant hand was in a cast because he had broken his hand and he had just had surgery on his hand on, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday. So his hand was in a cast up to his arm. That was his dominant hand. So for you to tell me that he committed suicide for no reason at an unknown person house in an unknown room that he's never been in before, and he used his left hand, that story did not make sense. And the fact that we did not get a death notification, that didn't make sense. So it's just like getting a second opinion. If a doctor gives you a prognosis and you don't agree with that, you have a right to go out and seek a second opinion, a third opinion, or a fourth opinion, however far that you would like to go. And in this particular case, because they were not giving my daughter any answers, and they released a statement on April 26th saying that Derontae had died of an apparent suicide, and the Missouri State Highway Patrol had concluded with them. And we had also heard that they had cleaned up the crime scene, that they had Snapchatted it. There was posts on Snapchat and different stories that we had heard. So no, we was not going to believe that Derontae had committed suicide because that did not make sense. He wasn't suicidal, so why would this only black boy, why would he only go to this only white man house that he's never been to with a Confederate flag in a room that he's never been in? Where did he get the gun from? Derontae didn't own a gun. So how did he get the gun? Where is the gun? We've never seen a gun. We've never seen anything.
Why do you think that because if these were supposed to be his friends that he left home with, why do you think, what was the rationale, with them? Did something happen between them to make them want to take him out in the county somewhere and leave him? What was the background on why they might have wanted to set him up?
Well, I'm going to let his mother answer that question.
All right. So, Miss Erica, we're going to try to bring you back. And why do you think they might have wanted to set up your son?
Because I believe it was like back in February, another party where there was a guy named Adam Rulo who had shot somebody at a party in Town, and which Adam is allegedly Derontae's friend that Derontae hung out with, and Derontae was out there. Well, when Adam got arrested for shooting the guy, it was told that Derontae had wrote a statement, snitched on Adam, and all the boys were upset with Derontae because he had snitched and wrote the statement, Adam. But Derontae had told them that he didn't write a statement, and nobody's ever talked to him about Adam, which was true. He's ever talked to him. He wrote a statement on Adam. Adam got caught red-handed with the gun and paid for it on house arrest, which is, yes, monitoring. But it's also said that Adam and Caden got him to this party because he was snitching, and that's why he was shot.
Okay, so then that means that is all the more reason why there should have been an investigation if all this was in the background, for them to now to just come out and say, okay, he committed suicide, that is a dereliction of their duty to not investigate. So now let's fast forward, Miss Kimberly. So now your family, you found an independent forensic pathologist, and that person did the autopsy, a second autopsy, and that led to the findings that there are telltale signs when a person commits suicide. One, there is powder burns on the skin because of the closeness of the weapon. That was not there. The evidence showed that the the shooting was done from further away than a person could stand and shoot themselves. Whether or not there was a weapon found at the scene, there are just things that did not add up, and that led a independent panel to conclude that Derontae's death was by violence, or in other words, that it was a homicide. And so now where do we go from here? Because that, I know that makes the local authorities, which will be the the Madison County Sheriff's Department, that puts them in a position to have to conduct a murder suicide that they did away with from the beginning. They didn't do their due diligence from the beginning. So what makes anybody think they're going to do right by it now just because they're being told to do it? And I know the state highway patrol or the state police, they have to conduct a murder investigation. But what is the family? What are you expecting? And how can we as individuals in Missouri, as well as across the United States, how can we help you get justice for your family and for your grandson and son?
Well, I think that the best way that we can all get justice is to request a change of venue. Because I want to reiterate something right here that I think is very important. The prosecuting attorney, Dwight Robbins of Madison County, he did not have them to call a coroner's inquest to prove that Derontae's death was a homicide. He had that inquest called because he wanted to prove that the other forensic pathologists wrong to say that Derontae had committed suicide. But because the jury saw through their lies and heard through their lies and ruled differently, death by violence, that's why the inquest was called. It wasn't called because he wanted to do the right thing. No. So let us keep that in mind. Now, there has to be a change of venue because they didn't investigate the first homicide. They didn't investigate the suicide. So what would make us think and trust that they would investigate this? And now, then, if they were to, if it was not a change of venue and you had Dwight Robbins as the prosecuting attorney, what makes you think that he's going to prosecute somebody? What makes you think that they're going to investigate this? No, they would not. They would just give my daughter the same song and dance that they've been giving her for 3 months. It's an open investigation.
Right, which is another way that they continue to allow guilty people to get away with it, is they say it's an open investigation, and that could be open for years. It could be open for decades. And so I do know that, let me say that we want to, if you want to call the Attorney General's Office of Missouri, the St. Louis Regional Office number is 314-340-6816. The Attorney General of Missouri, St. Louis Regional Office, that number is 314 340-6816 to demand justice for Derontae Martin and his murder investigation. So to close out, again, we want to thank you guys. But what, Miss Kimberly, what advice would you give to families to keep this from happening to them, as far as keeping their loved ones safe? And what advice would you give them if they find themselves in this position and needing to fight for justice? What advice would you give them?
I would tell them, if they loved one died under suspicious circumstances, get a second autopsy. Hire a second autopsy. I understand that a lot of families do not have the money to get those autopsies because they are expensive, but have fundraisers. You know, the community, you know, people from other states, you know, they have supported us because they have supported our cause for justice. Without those people helping us, without them supporting our cause for justice, we would not have made it as far as we have made it. So that that would be my advice to you. You know, if there's a suspicious circumstances, whether you have a body or not, if you can prove that something happened to your loved one, it doesn't matter. Investigate. Don't let nobody just tell you, well, they just a missing person. You know what? If people are missing, look for them.
I agree. And again, I want to thank you, ladies, for coming in and sharing your story. And so if we will keep abreast of what's going on, and if we need to come back, or if we need to conduct or coordinate fundraisers to keep this going to help you get justice, that's what we'll do. So I want to thank you again, and we'll keep up with you.
Thank you for sharing our story.
No problem. So we want to thank you, family, for coming on and spending the time. So again, if you want to be a part of the solution, the first step I would say is to contact the Attorney General's office in Missouri and ask for a change of venue because of what we just said. It's going to be if it's up to the Madison County District Attorney to charge someone with the murder of Derontae Martin. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be an open investigation from here to eternity, because that's one of the strategies that they use to get away with holding people accountable, and we're not going to put up with it. So call this number 314-340-6816 and tell them you want a change of venue for Derontae Martin's murder investigation, or at least you want his Attorney General's office to take over the prosecution. You want them to do something so we can get justice for Derontae Martin and his family. And to find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. That's at eurweb.com. Thanks, and you have a super day.